Hello everyone, so welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be talking about my experience in terms of doing 1 year of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So essentially I'm going to be talking about how I got started and my experience just trying out different classes, different teachers, and what I learned during that year. And also my advice for new beginners of people that want to just try out Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So in terms of the beginning, so like a lot of guys, I was listening to Joe Rogan and watching UFC, and I heard Joe Rogan rant and rave about jiu-jitsu, how it's life-changing, and also watching UFC, I just thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. I want to do some sort of martial arts, but I don't want to get my head smashed in. So I thought, yeah, let's just try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a non-impact sport, so it's mainly just submissions or wrestling, and just submitting opponent rather than striking. So yeah, save me from brain damage, I guess. And so yeah, so that's how I kind of thought about it, why I wanted to try it out. And so I started out in Amsterdam, just trying out different classes, then went back to London, where I tried out different gyms and stuff. And so yeah, so in terms of different gyms, they're all very different. So some gyms can be very strict. Maybe there's a toxic teacher or toxic environment, or just very strict in general, very regimented training, etc. Or other gyms can be really chill, relaxed. Everyone's just like socializing, casual, just chatting with each other, having fun, but also training hard as well. So in terms of the similarities, like most gyms train really hard and they spar quite hard. In my case, in my experience of trying out these different gyms, is that there's a different culture at different gyms. So certain teachers may be quite relaxed and chill and just try to be friendly with the students. Other gyms, the teachers might be a bit toxic and might treat the students quite poorly, in terms of being verbally abusive at times. So it all depends on the teacher, the type of gyms and the culture that you go to. So also depends what you want really. So maybe some people want a really strict gym. Maybe some people want a more friendly gym where they can kind of enjoy their time being there, essentially. So it all depends on who you are, where you're at in your journey, or what you want to do. Do you want a strict one or you want a casual one? So it's entirely up to you. So in my experience, so when I signed up for regular training in London, I did this on like a 6-month membership in central London. So this was quite a regimented and strict gym. So it was essentially evening sessions, or you could do really early morning sessions as well. But I tended to do evening sessions after work, where essentially I would turn up to the gym, and it was very structured. So we'd begin with like a specific warm-up, and then we would do a certain drill or technique, instructed by the teacher. Obviously very experienced, they know what they're doing. So, but very structured, very regimented. And we would go through like specific beginner techniques that I thought would be useful, because I tried out different gyms that essentially went through these drills, but to me as a beginner they were quite complicated and I couldn't quite follow it. And also there was a lot of sparring as well, so obviously as a beginner you don't really know what you're doing. So if you can't follow the complicated stuff, how are you gonna be able to spar in an actual setting as well? So I tried those gyms that were too complicated, or it was just too much sparring. I was just not enjoying it, so decided to go for a gym that was much more structured. I was learning much more beginner friendly techniques, and so I was able to pick it up at a more gradual, slow pace, also with other beginners that were attracted to these sort of classes. So obviously you learn the foundations, so how to control an opponent on the ground, how to like wrestle in terms of beginners, how to take down an opponent in terms of beginner techniques, and obviously also the different basic submissions that you can do. So what we learned was like rear naked choke was my first class, arm bar, etc. So really foundational or basic techniques that you can perhaps apply in a sparring match, etc. So yeah, so for the first 6 months, it was really structured, going through these really basic techniques, foundational techniques that just gave me a bit of a flavor of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu at a more slower pace. So I was able to build on those techniques, and eventually I decided to move on from this gym to another essentially MMA or Brazilian Jiu Jitsu gym in West London. So I decided to do this basically because it was closer to where I lived, and also I found I tried this a while ago, but I found it a bit too difficult for me. But now, because I gained up the basic techniques, the foundational techniques, I found I was able to pick up the stuff that they taught in class a lot better. So in terms of this gym, it was much more friendly, much more open atmosphere, and you're kind of able to just speak to different people, different belts, without any sort of class or hierarchy structure. So teachers are very friendly, everyone's quite friendly in the gym as well, but they do train hard. So when they do knuckle down, they do focus in the classes, etc. And when it comes to sparring, people are quite focused and determined there. So in terms of these classes, there's a much more wide range of belts in this different gym. So in terms of this gym, it was everything from white belts, purple belts, brown belts, black belts. So everyone was kind of mixed in the classes. So that's why the technicality or difficulty class is a bit higher than my previous one, where it's mainly focused on beginners. So it's a much more high level in terms of the techniques that you learn. So it was fortunate that I spent 6 months learning the foundations of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in terms of basic submissions, basic control, basic sweeps. So I was able to take those lessons and put it into these classes, which were a bit more difficult and with much high level sparring partners or Brazilian Jiu Jitsu partners in the class. So I was able to essentially learn a bit better in this. I still found it hard, but definitely those initial 6 months really helped me in terms of learning foundations. So so this is much more difficult classes, but not only in terms of the technicality of the classes, but also the sparring nature. So always at the end, they would leave about at least 15 to 30 minutes at the end, just pure sparring. So initially the classes were for about an hour, but then they do run over to do a little bit more sparring. So sessions tend to be about 5 minutes. Sparring sessions tend to be about 5 minutes for each round. So you'd pick a random opponent sitting on the mat, and then you just say, let's go, let's bang. And then essentially you just spar for 5 minutes, whether it be standing up or on the ground. And essentially you just basically try to submit each other as many times as possible, or protect yourself as much as possible within those 5 minutes. So so within this, as I mentioned, there's also lots of different belts within that class. So you're also sparring with lots of different belts within there. So mainly you do spar with white belts if you're a beginner, but maybe sometimes you'll eventually spar with a purple belt or brown belt or black belt. And in those situations, I suggest just relax and just go with the flow, try to learn as much as possible and just tap as quickly as possible. You don't want to injure yourself in these sparring sessions, because you want to obviously train again the next time. So definitely it's within this kind of gym, I did enjoy it a lot more because I did have the foundation. I did learn a lot more in my previous gym, so I was able to take those learnings and apply it in those sparring sessions. And although I did lose a lot, sometimes you do win some, and that's such a good feeling, knowing that you're able to apply what you learned in class or your previous lessons and apply it to an actual situation and sparring against someone. Those tend to be people with less experience than you, but hey, a win's still a win, you know? And so in terms of my learnings about this, so a lot of people say this, but Brazilian Jiu Jitsu to me is a journey. So you're learning as a man to kind of stand up for yourself in terms of the primitive basics. So you're learning about confrontation. So literally in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you'll always have an opponent against you. yes, the gym may be friendly, but at the end of the day, when you're sparring, you're literally in a physical confrontation with an opponent. And that is the most primitive level of confrontation that there is. And so you learn about the base of confrontation. And because you're kind of training in terms of confrontation here, you're kind of no longer afraid of confrontation in the real life, whether that be verbally or like you're ready to go physically as well. So that trains you in the mind in terms of, yes, I experienced confrontation in training and jiu-jitsu, and I know what it's like, and I've learned from that experience. Now I'm ready, and I feel more confident if I was to go in a confrontation with someone in real life. So that's definitely one thing. You learn about confrontation at a very primitive level to prepare you for the real life as well. So that's really useful. That constantly getting into fights with people, sparring matches with people in training really helps you build the confidence to say, yes, I can handle confrontation in real life. I've done this a million times in training. This is nothing to me. Like, I'm ready to go in real life. So that's definitely one of the biggest learnings that I've gained over the year, is being more comfortable, more confident in confrontation with people. So that's one thing. Next thing, Joe Rogan, a lot of people talk about this, but it's the humility that you gain from this, the humbleness that you gain from this. So obviously in the gym, so everyone is literally the same. You're all in that room to learn one specific art, or sport, or skill set, however you want to call it. So everyone's there in the same room to learn the same thing, but you can be rich, poor, funny, not funny, famous, not famous, whatever. Like, you're all in the same room, and it doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, how big you are, how small you are. Everyone is in the same room learning the same thing, and the winner of a sparring match is essentially the one that trains the most, is the most disciplined, has the best technique, etc. And that's quite a humbling experience when you know that. So you could be literally the richest person in the room, and you could just get basically battered in a sparring session. I mean, that's quite a humbling experience, knowing that, yeah, I've got all these assets, or I've got all these riches, but at the end of the day, this is kind of the jungle. It's the strongest kind of wins, or the ones with the best technique wins. It doesn't matter about your past or your history. Yeah, it's still a dog eat dog world out there in terms of within that immediate environment in the gym. So technique prevails over anything, or experience prevails over anything in the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu gym. So that's quite a humbling experience. So obviously as a beginner, I lost quite a lot. I'd say definitely over 80% of my sparring was definitely losses. But as you do learn, maybe that 10 or 20% of the times you do spar, even though they tend to be someone less experienced than you do gain that confidence in terms of, hey, I'm actually getting better at this. So the more I train, the more I learn about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the more I'm able to touch on those experiences and able to submit an opponent or control an opponent for 5 minutes during a sparring match as well. So those are kind of my main learnings is this. And also another learning is that I used to think I was fit, really fit, because I do like to keep in shape. I do a lot of cardio, a lot of calisthenics, pull-ups, chin-ups, running, etc. But until you do sparring for, say, like 20 or 30 minutes with different opponents each time for 5-minute rounds, you don't realize how tiring it is just to physically fight someone in hand-to-hand combat. Like, it is probably the most draining thing that I've ever done. Like, really, really draining. Not only in terms of the physical exertion, because you're in this really hot gi, sometimes in the basement, sometimes a really stuffy room, and you got 20 guys in there just sparring. The whole room's just sweaty and humid, and now you've got some guy that essentially wants to strangle you or break your arm, etc. And yeah, you got to fight this person, you got to try to do the same to them. And essentially it's unbelievably physically exerting. I cannot describe it better enough unless you go and experience it yourself. It's a very humbling experience being that tired and just constantly being submitted, etc. And it's something that I think most humans should try to experience, just to see what it feels like, just that level of physical exertion for like 20-30 minutes. And you got some guy in the mount and just like sweating on you. It's just very unpleasant. And on top of that, the physical exertion, I think it's the mental exertion as well, because they say, well, a lot of people say Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is kind of like a chess match using your bodies, really, and it is exactly that. So he's got you in this move, you got that move, and you got to try and go from A to B. You got to work it out, and you're really tired as well, and you're absolutely exhausted, and you got to figure out this chess move. And it's just both the physical and mental exertion make this, I think, one of the toughest sports I've ever tried. So yeah, that was one of my learnings, that I'm not as fit as I thought I was, based on how tired I am and how unpleasant it can be during those 20 or 30 minute sparring rounds. So yeah, those are my 3 learnings. So in terms of my advice for beginners or people that want to try out jiu-jitsu, I'd say if you're intrigued, definitely just try it out. But I'd always recommend trying out different gyms. I mean, everyone's different, everyone's got different personalities, everyone's got different styles of learning. So I'd try out, these gyms normally do free trials, so you can just maybe do a free trial or pay for one class and just try out these different classes. Most major cities will have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. It's very popular nowadays. So try out lots of different classes, at least three or four, and just try out, just get to know the teachers a little bit, see what they're like. Do you gel well with them? Do you think they'll be able to teach a very structured class or a nice class for you? What does your instinct say about the gyms, and just kind of go with that. So, but I'd always recommend trying out different gyms. Everyone's got different personalities, everyone likes different teachers, different gyms, etc. So please just try out lots of different gyms before signing up for a period of time. So yeah, my next advice would be just to try to enjoy it. I would suggest only doing it if you enjoy it. Don't stick it out if you don't enjoy it. I think there's lots of things you can do with your time in your life, rather than just learning to strangle people or submit someone that's just like sweating on you, for example. So I think there's a lot of ways to spend your time other than learning to fight someone. So yeah, if you enjoy it, great, stick with it. If you don't enjoy it, still maybe stick out like a month or two. But then if you still really hate it or you don't enjoy it, there's lots of other sports that you can go to, so don't waste your time doing it. And so my last advice would be to make sure that I would recommend, especially if you're a beginner, go to classes where it's a bit more structured, less sparring. In my experience, that helped me. So going to beginner-friendly classes, not much sparring, because you don't want to go to sparring matches where you're constantly losing, because you might just hate it because you're constantly losing. So it's kind of a not a good view to have as a beginner. So make sure you try to find classes where it's purely for beginners, less sparring, and then maybe a couple of months down the road, maybe you can try out more sparring gyms after that. But definitely at the beginning, go for more structured classes as a beginner, and that will help your progression much more in the future as well. And also a final tip as well, before I forget, is that as a beginner, when you start to spar, do not go full out, because you will injure yourself. And I've experienced that in the past. So I've injured my knee in the past because I was going too full out with a much more experienced person. And it's more important to learn and tap quickly. And so just kind of go with the flow in terms of sparring, but learn as you're rolling. Just take it easy, relax, don't go full out because you will definitely injure yourself, as in my case, and always tap quickly. So yeah, as you gain more experience, as you gain more techniques, you can kind of spar a lot better. But as a beginner, I'd always suggest, certainly in the first few months, to just relax a bit when it comes to sparring and tap quickly, but learn at the same time as well. Yeah, don't go full out because you are going to get injured. That's what I'd say for that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you found this useful. If you found this useful, please like, comment, and subscribe.